Yalimadat everyone, and welcome on behalf of IPN certifications to today's webinar, Low-Code, No-Code Tools. My name is Michelle Harani, and I am the National IPN Lead for Certifications and Upskilling. We are excited to have you here with us today. As many of you are aware, IPN is focused on connecting us with each other, assisting with career and professional development, providing resources for skills development, and sharing thought leadership like this session today within the Jamaat. Furthermore, IPN offers a number of programs and services to the community that will allow us to build on top of what we learned today, such as job placement support services, resume review, interview prep, connecting with other Ismailis in industries you are interested in pursuing, as well as entrepreneurship coaching and a Slack community of professionals and entrepreneurs. Reach out to us at connect@ipnonline.net. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please use the chat box, which the certifications team and I will be monitoring throughout today's session. Without further ado, I am going to introduce our esteemed moderator, Zubair Talib. Zubair is an entrepreneur and technologist. His professional background includes multiple software technology startup companies as founder, CTO, and CEO. He has a wide range of interests, including the future of software and the implications of low-code. He is currently active in the field of natural language processing and conversational AI as the CTO of ConverseNow.ai. Zubair, over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. And thanks to you and the IPN team for the opportunity to be here today. Appreciate the hard work and to the entire team in organizing this and these sessions in general. Yalimadad, we are excited and honored to welcome all of you here today. I think these webinars are a great way to learn and to connect, and I highly encourage each of you to join and be active in the IPN Slack community. I look forward to connecting with you there. Today's webinar aims to provide a deeper dive into low-code, no-code tools, what they are, the various career pathways, how to get certified in this emerging space, and other learning opportunities. We have 3 talented Ismaili speakers that will share their background and experiences in this field. Today's program, as Michelle mentioned, will conclude with a Q&A session. So please make sure to use Zoom's Q&A chat feature and post any questions, the Q&A feature, and post any questions you have for any of the panelists there. I understand there'll also be a mini Kahoot game at the end where prizes will be awarded to the top 5 winners. Now, to kick us off, I'm going to share a high-level overview of the low-code, no-code industry and the landscape of the companies in the space. Next slide, please. So first is what is low-code? Formerly, low-code is defined as an application development platform that enables rapid application delivery with minimal hand coding and quick setup and deployment. Next slide. Yeah, so that's a mouthful. Specifically, low-code tools are really typically defined by having a visual programming environment, drag and drop capabilities, visual modeling tools, pre-built templates to distinguish them from hard code tools where you actually need to write syntax and code. You can see this example on the left is the screenshot is a tool called Creatio. It's a CRM or customer relationship management tool, and it's a low-code process automation tool. And you can drag and drop and connect the business processes in a visual way as opposed to in a coding style way. Next slide, please. So I think many of us are familiar with some sort of digital tool that has a visual interface. Tools like SharePoint, for example, have been around for a long time. And we're all likely familiar with some newer tools like WordPress or Squarespace or Shopify or MailChimp, or there are a number that we may or may have encountered over the course of time. So the question is, why has low code become an emerging trend lately? And I think there's been a number of industry and market trends that have come together to drive the growth of this industry, and I'll share a few of them here. But I think the first and probably the foremost has been the rise of cloud computing. Just the ease and the low-cost ability to deploy software in the cloud has given a rise to a host of all sorts of business software applications across the software industry, and low code is no different. Just the ability to be able to develop and deploy those software in the cloud and make those available widely. The second trend that has sort of given rise to this has been all about the shortage of software developers and coders. There's just not enough supply of trained and experienced software developers as there is demand. And similarly, of course, correspondingly, the rising cost. It's been very expensive to hire software developers anywhere in the world. With the pandemic and remote access, it's made it even more expensive. The best talent has been harder and harder to come by. And I think even those companies that do have software talent and software developers tend to focus them on their core capabilities and functions, and those developers don't have enough bandwidth or space to be able to focus on all the IT needs within an organization. The third and related is that there's been increasing IT needs within an organization as we have more devices, more apps, more connected, generating more data. There's an increasing amount of need to organize, manage, communicate, automate, processize, digitize various business processes within our organization, and just not enough developers to be able to handle all of those growing IT needs. And I think the last trend has been just a general, trend of tech savviness, growth in tech savviness. All of us having mobile phones, being able to do more and more ourselves. And just as typists were replaced by word processors and travel agents by online travel sites, low-code tools are geared to let each of us sort of scratch our own itch in IT, so to speak. Instead of having to rely on developers, we can do simple and increasingly complex IT tasks and automation work like websites and CRMs and so forth. So I think these several trends have been coming together to create a very large activity in the space. Next slide, please. And I think sort of these numbers back them up. These are some Forrester Research numbers that say 80% of organizations surveyed said they need to digitize more of their processes, but 96% say they have insufficient technical resources to actually do that work. 60% believe low-code development platforms will actually help them in this area, and 75% are planning to actually do something or experiment in the field. All right, so a big movement and trend to try to accommodate for this. Next slide, please. So just to spend a bit of time to illustrate a bit of a range of these tools and what they're used for, just a few quick examples and case studies. So the first example is a startup or there's an entrepreneur, a company called PeerShare. It is like an Airbnb style rental platform for renting private dock spaces for boats. And without any real software development, they used a tool called Bubble to build their web application and to actually facilitate that rental experience. So built their entire application on one of these low-code tools. Another example, a company you may have heard of, a larger company, luggage manufacturer named Samsonite, revised their entire procurement and purchasing processes using a software no-code tool called Pipify, and saw incredible results from that investment and that work in doing so. And last is a nonprofit company called Scholar Match that built a platform for crowdfunding scholarships for underprivileged students. There they essentially used a tool which we'll hear more about later today called Airtable that to build their CRM and their entire donor database. So sort of three examples, different scales, different type of companies, organizations that using these tools to not have to rely on software developers, number one, and also to be able to quickly iterate and develop the things that they need in small scale fashion in some cases, going right to market, and also in large companies to actually take on these IT needs. So just a couple quick examples. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now I'd like to give you sort of a brief tour of what's taking place in the space in general. It turns out low code, no code is a large and fast growing field with lots of players. And this image certainly shows that. It's an ecosystem of 100 plus companies in at least 10 categories that I'll highlight briefly, but just to sort of give you a sense of the type of things that are taking place in the field and what all is being taken on by companies and the needs that are being filled. So first is in the top left is business intelligence, the idea of transforming data into knowledge. Tools you may have heard of like Tableau or newer entrants like Funnel.io that are providing this need where business users can essentially do that data work themselves with visual coding type tools. Second is CRM, managing customer relationships and communication and the whole life cycle around that. Well-known companies like Salesforce that have been in this space for a while, and companies like Pipedrive and Zoho and a number of other companies that are handling this so that that different parts of the organization can manage customers and the various communication processes. Third is a big and really, interesting area, enterprise application. Companies like IPN and Uncork, and we'll hear shortly today about companies like ServiceNow and Mendix, where they're building applications in, very large scale applications in some cases within the enterprise, all using low code or no code tools. Marketing, e-commerce, design tools have their own suite of low code tools, familiar with maybe like MailChimp for email, Shopify for, of course, for, onboarding e-commerce, and then newer companies, but like Figma and Canva focused on design and collaboration and that nature, all on a no code sort of basis. Machine learning and robotic process automation, companies like DataRobot and UiPath that are helping to automate the actual, machine learning in some cases, taking data in and making predictions or regressions right out. And then robotic process automation, actually automating the processes of different types right from a visual interface. Even software developers and QA engineers have low code tools to make their life easier, tools like Virtuoso. Internet of Things and IoT automation, no code tools like Node-RED, where you can actually set up whole systems around IoT connectivity. And then there are a whole fleet, maybe familiar with web application development tools, ones like Bubble I mentioned, or Webflow, certainly Squarespace, and a whole variety. And then increasingly tools associated with workflow automation and business process and connecting those things within the digital work environment, and companies like Zapier, Kissflow, and Pipefy. So a whole host of companies, a lot of different applications and an increasing number of these. And is a visual language that each of these are starting to use. And it's really quite amazing to see the proliferation of companies in this last few years. Next slide, please. So where there's opportunity and needs like this, the money usually follows. And there has been incredible investment activity, private equity in the space. Dozens of funding rounds from venture capital and new ones each day, recognizing the growth of this space and the need for companies to try to use these type of tools to move their digital transformation type work. In the recent past, some 40-some companies have received $10 million of funding in the last few years. And almost $9.5 billion of total private funding. So just a huge amount of investment going into this space. And next slide. From an enterprise value, it's been a frothy market in these last several years, and valuations have also been very high. So there are clearly a number of public companies, the large ones, of course, all like Google, Amazon, Microsoft are spending substantial time in this space and have their own suite of tools. But specialized companies like ServiceNow, UiPath, Appian, Monday, Squarespace are all public companies as well. But there's also been huge valuations on the private side with 20-some unicorns, private companies with valuations more than $1 billion. Some are companies you might know or use, like the project management tool ClickUp, $4 billion, or DataRobot I mentioned, $6 billion, or Figma or Canva that are worth $10 and $40 billion. Just in the last few years, these companies have been created, and just huge private company valuations. So I think these are not necessarily evidence, but certainly market trends that show that a lot of investment dollars and there's an expectation that the value of these companies and the revenue they're generating will be commensurate with these kind of valuations. So I hope this helps give a high-level overview of the space, a little bit about what it is, what it does, why it's interesting and exciting. And next slide. With that, I'd like to introduce our panel. First will be Amin Remtala, is a management consultant at KPMG in Los Angeles. For over 10 years, he has been implementing low-code applications using the ServiceNow platform in various industries, including healthcare, media, entertainment, and government. Naila Hussain is also based out of LA. Naila runs a tech company which acts as an internal IT for startups to medium-sized businesses. She leverages no-code tool Monday.com that allows her to create workflow for her clients as well as her businesses. Her career gives her flexibility to work with clients from all over the world. Naila is also the co-lead for IPN Technology and the director of technology for Connect, a global encounters initiative. Unfortunately, Naila could not be here today due to a family emergency, and we wish her well. Marian Kassem is a marketing technology professional based in Atlanta with over 10 years of experience in marketing, operations, and project management. Over the past few years, she has helped companies optimize their tech stack to achieve their marketing goals. And last is Imran Qasim, a proven technology leader with over 18 years experience in enterprise IT. A low-code programmer from the start, he was building web applications in technologies such as MS SharePoint and WordPress for many years before learning the low-code platform Mendix. Imran has spent the last 9 years building an expertise not only in Mendix, but in software architecture, software design, and software delivery. Amin, over to you.
Thanks, Zubair. Yamada, everyone. My name is Amin Ramtula, and I live in Los Angeles, California. I've been working with low-code platforms, specifically ServiceNow, for over 10 years, and I'm currently working as a management consultant at KPMG in their federal technology enablement practice. Before jumping into the content, I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the journey and illustrate a key point that I think we're going to try to drive home today, which is that you don't need to be from a traditional computer science or tech background to use low code to your benefit, or go as far as I did, which is turning it into a career that has been running over 10 years now. So rewinding to 2011, I wanted to start at the beginning. I graduated from the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada, with a biology degree. At that point, I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I took a IT help desk job, helping folks with their computer issues, basic application troubleshooting, answering the phones, et cetera. And about a year into my job, I was provided with an opportunity to replace our aging help desk tool at the time. And the software that was chosen was ServiceNow. So I took it on as a side project. And at that time, I self-taught myself JavaScript, which was needed at the time, using codeacademy.com. And we implemented ServiceNow to replace a very basic help desk ticketing tool application. And what I quickly realized was that there was an opportunity to scale the platform to help us in other areas of our department. So over the next couple of years, I continued to have these side projects where I would build small applications to help with manual paper-based processes in our little IT department. And we were able to make some good impacts. And in 2014, I decided that it was time to take it on as a full-time career. So I packed my bags, I moved to New York City, and I took a job at KPMG in their CIO advisory practice. And that was working with mid to large scale enterprises across the country in all kinds of different industries, using ServiceNow to improve, automate, and mature IT departments, and eventually what would expand to other parts of the enterprise too. So I did that for a few years, and in 2017, somewhere in between, I moved to Los Angeles, and in 2017 took a job at a health system out here in Los Angeles called Cedars-Sinai. And my job there was as an architect and expanding the use of ServiceNow outside of IT service management, which was really kind of the bread and butter of ServiceNow at the time. Over the next few years, we grew ServiceNow to be a platform for application development across human resources, facilities management, clinical engineering, and just a whole wealth of custom applications, some of which I'll talk a little bit about a little later on here. And then more recently have moved back to KPMG, where I work with federal agencies and the federal government at large to help them automate and kind of migrate some of their old legacy applications into the century and really drive efficiencies in the use of technology. Next slide, please. So what is ServiceNow? ServiceNow is a platform that's used by over 80% of the Fortune 500 for managing work. And that sounds generic and very general to say that, but it's really true. And then I think a common thread that you're going to see here today is that you can really apply these low-code systems to almost any use case in any industry, in any part of the business. So it's very generally referred to as just a platform for managing work. ServiceNow has two main offerings. The first is a software as a service offering, commonly known as SaaS. That might be a term that you've seen or heard before, but essentially what it means is a suite of pre-built configurable applications to manage the back office operations of a large enterprise. So for example, there's a suite of applications to help you manage your day-to-day activities in IT, human resources, customer service management, a whole bunch of other parts of a business, finance, legal, et cetera. But really the point is that it's a suite of applications that can be configured to work with your organization and its nuances using low code and no code techniques. That's kind of been the bread and butter of ServiceNow. More recently, they've actually had the introduction of a platform as a service offering, which I think is what we're going to focus on for today, which is really seeing huge usage more recently as a kind of blank slate application builder. So you can use the power of the platform and all of the building blocks that it provides you to actually build applications from the ground up for, again, any use case, and using low code technologies and techniques to do that. In both cases, I will say that ServiceNow is pushing a citizen developer model. So again, I think Zubair had alluded to it before, but really what this means is that they're empowering folks in the business to build and configure applications for themselves using low code, no code techniques, thereby reducing that never ending IT backlog and freeing up IT to work on, things that require more technical skill sets. Next slide, please. So talking a little bit about the ServiceNow low-code development tools. So the first really is the App Engine Studio. This is really where you'll build the nuts and bolts of an application as you are starting with, an idea. And there's a couple of examples here. So the first is your tables and fields. This is going to be the data model of your application. So what is the information that you want to collect in this application that you're building? The second is Flow Designer. So this is where you can activate that data and introduce automated flows into your application. So an example is a customer submits some kind of request, or a user of your application submits some kind of request, and maybe you want to send an approval to that person's manager automatically. The third is our Integration Hub. So the Integration Hub is an example of how we can use low code to integrate into other common systems. So an example here could be a customer or a user submitting a complaint, and the application checks how many Twitter followers they have and determines the priority of how fast you want to respond to it. And believe it or not, that's something that happens in real life. You obviously want to deal with the people with the loudest voices first, and it's definitely something that we've seen in the industry. And then finally, also the place where you'll build things like security and then notifications out of your application as well. And then there's the presentation layer. So that's where you build the front end, pretty end user facing view of your application, whether it's on a mobile device or on a website. And then this is very drag and drop based. It looks a lot like Squarespace or WordPress, and allows you to kind of build your application in that way. But together, it kind of gives you a full suite of low-code tools to build both the back and the front end of the application. And then for those of us, or for those of you that are more technical, the ability to inject additional code, well, not necessarily, to kind of offer more complex and detailed functionality. Next slide, please. So I want to switch gears here a bit and talk a bit about a real life use case. So this was an application that we built at a health system that I worked out here in Los Angeles, Cedars-Sinai. And it's a wonderful example of rapid application development that's enabled by low-code tools. So I just wanted to quickly go through, what we did here. So the requirement was early on, I think it's been a couple of years now, when the vaccines first became available for COVID-19, there was a significant demand for them in hospital systems. However, there was not enough supply at that time. So at that time, we were essentially just getting random numbers of vaccines, and we wanted to make sure we had a way to prioritize those vaccinations for the most high-risk employees that we had. How do we make sure, I guess in other words, how do we make sure that the people that need it the most are getting it? And taking into consideration nuances like, having environmental services staff who may be indirectly working with COVID patients, needing a vaccine perhaps more than somebody who works in a clinical setting but has no interaction with any COVID patients. So in effect, what we did was we built an application on the Now platform in less than a week to prioritize staff vaccination requests. So some high-level features included an ability to submit a request for a vaccination. So this is a user-friendly front-end form for people to request. We would ask them a series of questions about, their a series of questions about their professional work that they do, some personal questions as well. And what we did is we combined the answers to those questions along with state guidelines at the time, and then HR and clinical data we had about those people. So for example, knowing where they work, what kind of people they worked with, if they were actively working with COVID patients. And we were able to come up with a prioritized list or a score that we would apply to each person requesting a vaccination. And then what we would do is, as we would receive a shipment of a vaccination, we would just go down the list top to bottom and offer the next set of people automatically the ability to schedule their vaccination appointment. And we'd get them in and get them out. And what the outcome was is that we were able to give vaccinations early on to those that needed them the most in our organization. And we actually processed over 15,000 requests before the LA County systems were even available at that time. So, a wonderful example of how you can build things very fast. And this is a very interesting use case because, I never actually got the chance to meet any of the people that were giving me the requirements. So if you've ever taken requirements before, you typically go through workshops and you meet people and you have a multitude of meetings. This was all done over email and text message because a lot of those physicians were dealing with the surge and they had no time to talk to me. So we built the whole thing in a week and we retired it, I think, 3 weeks later. So it was a very short life cycle from beginning to end of this application. Next slide, please. So how can you get started with ServiceNow and low-code in general? So ServiceNow offers a couple of free resources that, if you're interested in checking out the platform, I'd highly recommend you make use of. So the first is a developer instance. So if you sign up at developer.service-now.com, ServiceNow will give you a full-blown instance or environment of ServiceNow, including both the software as a service applications, as well as a kind of the application builder that I talked about earlier. So you can build use cases yourself. And then they also have nowlearning.service-now.com, which is a combination of both free courses to help you get started with the platform. So very useful if you are trying to poke around the developer environment. I'd highly recommend you take some quick intro courses that are for free on Now Learning. But also, if you are in an enterprise environment already, they do offer paid certification pathways as well. So, it is something that, you have an active project going on in your organization and you want to learn more, there's definitely an opportunity for you to get some paid courses from your employer. And then below is just a laundry list of relevant and in-demand skills and certifications. You'll see that there's a lot on this list here. If you have familiarity with back-end processes in IT, HR, facilities, legal, if you're a product manager, if you have familiarity with application design, or even if you have more common IT-related certifications, ITIL, Scrum Master Foundations, PMP, and even just kind of a few of the coding languages here, there's a huge opportunity to break into the field, specifically talking about ServiceNow. So whether you're tech savvy, whether you're not tech savvy, business process savvy, in kind of all areas of that spectrum, there's definitely a need right now. A bit more generally speaking about breaking into the space, if you currently work in an enterprise environment or a corporate environment, I'd suggest that you look inward for the platforms that you may already have existing in your environment or that are available to you. I'd suggest trying to get involved in any digital transformation efforts that are surrounding these low-code, no-code tools. And again, this is for people that are technical. This is for people that are more business focused, either or. Likewise, if you hold functional or domain knowledge in a specific area of the business, I'd suggest that you think about how you can use some of these tools to improve your team's workflows or replace an aging application, that might have been around for many decades. Using myself as an example, that's how I started. I built applications to solve small operational challenges in my IT department, and 10 years later, here I am still doing it. Thank you everyone for your time. I really much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter, Marine, who will take us through her experience with Airtable.
Thank you, Amin. Hi, everyone. My name is Marian Gassam, and I currently work as a marketing technology lead at Airtable. Next slide, please. So my journey with low-code has really gone from actually being an end user as various business functions, from marketing, sales, account management, to actually now being a creator of Airtable bases. So I graduated from Georgia Tech with a degree in management with a focus in marketing and operations. So did not graduate with a degree in computer science, though I had some coursework in database management and coding, which I think helped in terms of being able to communicate with a technical skill set. My career took a bit of a journey. So started with account management, program management at World 50, And then really where I learned how to use low-code tools and really learn marketing was through a small marketing agency called Marsden Marketing. Honestly, was the best decision I ever made, because that is the beauty of a small shop. You get a chance to learn everything from demand gen, website redesign, social media marketing. And it's really where I learned marketing automation tools, including HubSpot. But I also learned other tools, WordPress, MailChimp, Zapier, and those tools I still use to this day. After that, I moved to a role in Marketo, which was actually bought out by Adobe in 2018. So I got a chance to really learn B2B and B2C marketing use cases and implement various tools, really helping companies with their lead funnels, lead scoring, lead nurturing, really helping them think through their revenue paths. From there, I actually got an opportunity to join the IPN team as a national program manager, helped assist with the Diamond Jubilee Alliance conference. And that was really using my skill set, driving marketing strategy, implementing tech stack for the conference. And then now I'm at Airtable. So as a marketing tech lead, I manage and implement all of Airtable's marketing tech stack. So essentially anything and everything the marketing team needs to run, from business processes behind the technology to the technology itself, we implement it. So just for context, we implement Marketo, Airtable, Salesforce are just some of the major tools. Love the team, love the product. I actually got a chance to be Airtable's consultant when I was as a marketing consultant, and I was really just passionate about what they were doing, loved the team, loved the product, definitely wanted to be a part of it. Next slide, please. So what is Airtable? So you've heard a lot about low-code platforms, but one of the great things about Airtable is it runs basically any type of use case. That's really the beauty of a system like ours. You can use it for a small, tech startup to, teachers use it in schools to help manage their lesson plans. You can use it for endless things. So essentially the way Airtable works is there are a few UI interfaces. So you have various views, apps, and automations that are running behind a database, which is really giving you a single source of truth. Allows you to sync a lot of data, has ability to collect data as well through forms and integrations and CSV imports. But then you can basically use it with any sort of use case that you want, because the workflows are yours to design. And I think that's what the beauty of a tool like this is. Next slide, please. So who can create with Airtable? Essentially everyone. You don't have to have a technical background. Non-technical creators use Airtable for various use cases. In fact, we drink our own Kool-Aid. So I use Airtable to manage marketing technology projects from all scales, whether it's documentation, project management, understanding and implementing, nitty-gritty things with the tool. And my background with marketing and operations basically means that I can use Airtable workflows to help streamline all processes. Next slide, please. And this is, I think, what I want to, kind of really help hone in on is with tools like Airtable, you can be creative. So you can use it for event planning. In fact, one of our team members has used it to design a Wordle game for our internal team members. You can manage your TV shows, but then really you can manage large scale enterprise transformations and multiple team projects because of the capabilities. So some of the biggest players in the market use it. Some of the stats on the screen are just how impressive using Airtable is. So a few things, $13.8 billion low-code projected market. Just from last year alone, Airtable increased market share 22%. That's amazing. And we have adoption with 57% of the Fortune 500. Big players, Nike, Netflix, Apple, marketing operations team uses Airtable, so it's quite extensive. There are other tools out there, but obviously we won't mention them, as Airtable has been just such a cool tool to be able to use. But I think it's really important to know that your knowledge of Airtable can come in handy, even if you're not necessarily working for Airtable or using it to create. You might be an end user one day where you might get invited as a collaborator on one of these tools. So we have lots of different templates. You don't have to create anything from scratch. You can start with the template, whether you're trying to manage your social media or inventory planning. You basically can just download a template, takes 2 minutes, and you can get started with Airtable, which is quite impressive. Next slide, please. So with low-code transforming businesses, there are lots of different opportunities. Internally, obviously at Airtable, but most likely most important external. So you can be in customer-facing roles or internal roles. You can work with organizations on understanding their use cases and really assisting them with business process automation, helping them build custom solutions for enterprise customers, enabling their long-term success. So there's lots of different roles, like whether it's an implementation specialist, being very hands-on and understanding the use case, or being a solutions architect if you really enjoy database management. You can also have more of the technical role with Airtable, being an integrations engineer, or you can also be more customer facing and as a customer support advocate. In addition, I think there's also some really cool roles out there. So you can be a content creator. There are lots of YouTubers out there that are creating courses on Airtable or training videos on various use cases. So that's also a great career path. Obviously, you can, actually create courses on more formal websites like Udemy and Coursera. There is no formal Airtable-owned paid certification path. So that is a gap in the marketplace that people are trying to actively fulfill. So if you are a content creator, this is a great area for you to invest time in creating and actually selling your educational content. The other thing I want to point out is, obviously you can be a freelance developer. One of the cool things you can do online is you can purchase Airtable templates similar to WordPress templates out there. You can also assist businesses by creating custom templates for them. And then of course, if you're a project manager, this is, whether you're using Smartsheets or whether you're using other forms of project management tools, Airtable now is transforming that role, right? Because there are more and more project management opportunities with Airtable being the core of the tech stack. So you don't have to be a traditional programmer to make your way in low code, but it does depend on what you're trying to do at the end. So you're going to need some technical skills, understanding the language of database management and automation. What are workflows? What are automations? Lots of free courses and videos, of course, to learn online. Whether you're in a solution engineering or a consulting role in a SaaS environment, you do have to have some deep understanding of enterprise integration methods, including API architecture. But if you are not interested in sort of being a developer with Airtable, you can also come at it from a soft skills perspective, right? So you can still create. I'm a creator of Airtable bases. I don't have coding experience, but what I am able to do is really communicate and understand what my target audience's use case. Because I'm the MarTech lead at Airtable, what am I doing? My target audience is the entire marketing team, the business technology teams, the data infrastructure teams. So I'm working with them to understand what our use cases are, understand what our implementations are going to entail. And then I'm starting from a template to be able to use an Airtable base for project management. The other thing is, you kind of have to be a teacher at heart if you're going to play the role of, being a sort of customer support advocate. Problem solving should excite you. And I think that's the soft skill that really, is the sort of core of any kind of role in low code. And because there's no certification path, there are, obviously YouTube videos and courses, but airtable.com is a free product. So sign up and start playing with it. Download templates, use it for your personal management. In fact, I used Airtable to manage my job search prior to joining the Airtable team. That's it for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Imran.
All right, thank you, Marion. So my name is Imran Qasim, no relation, and I have been working with low-code technologies for a little over 10 years now as well. Enterprise architecture, software, technology for about 20. And let's look at my journey. Can we go to the next slide, please? So for me, I started my journey a little bit earlier. And for me, it's really a love-hate relationship with software programming that took me down a path of being a low-code programmer. When I was young, I learned a few lines of code in BASIC, and a couple of years later, I learned a few more lines of code in C++. And right around that time, I decided I would never work professionally as a software programmer. It just seemed too tedious of a task for me to be chasing down semicolons through thousands of lines of code. And so I went down a route more kind of on a hardware side. I joined the military after high school, and I worked in satellite communications, network administration, server and system administration, things like that. I ended up picking up SharePoint while I was there, and through that, I was able to build tools, and I learned a little bit about HTML and some front-end design work. But ultimately, even before low-code was a concept, we were building, what became powerful web applications using out-of-the-box drag-and-drop SharePoint tools. And so ultimately, we were building without programming. As I moved forward, I continued to work with SharePoint in different areas, even though my main job was necessarily in hardware or tech support or help desk or something like that. Prior to, or right around 2010, I started working with WordPress. Another tool, if you're familiar with it, lets you build powerful websites, e-commerce, web applications with marketplace features, which are pre-built, and you can kind of drag and drop, install plugins, and have functionality and be able to take credit cards on your site or post blogs or manage your content or things like that. And through working with WordPress, I started learning more about the full stack of a web application, right? I started learning more about the front end and how things were being put together with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and looking at server-side code like PHP, and then even on the database side with MySQL. And some of this stuff might be familiar to y'all, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. But I was realizing that if I really wanted to be able to make web applications and understand the full stack, I was starting to have to learn many different languages. Right a little bit later, I had an opportunity to learn a tool called Mendix. And this came to me at a company called Caris that I was working at. And they were going to use it to build some physicians portals and things like that to kind of manage lab requests. It was a lab company. And so I got to learn Mendix and starting to build portals with Mendix, and it was great. Over the years, I got really good with the platform, got expert certified, and even became an MVP in the Mendix community. For the last couple of years, I've been working really more directly with cloud native services and building a homeownership app in AWS. But today we're here to talk about Mendix. So let's go to the next slide and let's look at what is Mendix. So like Airtable and ServiceNow, Mendix is an application platform as a service that allows you to build low-code applications without doing a lot of hand coding. And that's what we really mean, right? We're not writing a lot of lines of code. It's really a lot more visual modeling. And Mendix has been around since about 2005. One of the early pioneers in the low-code space, they were acquired by Siemens in 2018. And ever since, it's been a concept that's been being tracked by names like Forrester and Gartner. Mendix has been consistently named a leader in multi-experience development platforms in low-code. Next slide, please. So Mendix looks at this kind of team collaboration. So a lot of people are asking questions, right? Who is low-code right for? Who's going to be the one to use it in their job? And quite honestly, it's a variety of people, right? There's a continuum of people that are involved in building applications. You may be a business user who's really connected to the business processes, but not very tech savvy in the sense where you could write lines of code, and everything down to the professional developer who can write lines of code, but maybe very disconnected from the business process itself. And so generally you have this collaboration of business people and technology people when you're building tools and software. And as has been mentioned, a lot of times when you're waiting on professional developers to code things or turn out new features, they generally get this big backlog of work, and we have to really prioritize and say what's the most important things to work on, and a lot of things get moved to the wayside. And what tools like Mendix and other low-code tools allow you to do is it allows you to have a more collaborative atmosphere. And what we'll look at here in a little bit in a live demo are Mendix Studio Pro, which is their visual modeler that we use to create programs, and some of the tools that they use provide to help kind of collaborate around that. But ultimately, you can add to the program, make changes without having to write code, all the way to being able to extend the platform beyond what it can do with any code that you can write. And so everyone and every personality along the way can contribute to the process. Next slide, please. So I want to look at code a little bit, and we've looked at a lot of examples of this real pretty low-code tools and kind of the UI that we get from Airtable and ServiceNow and some of the other examples. But let's look at what's behind that, right? If you're really working on a traditional web application and you're looking at a full stack of development, this is kind of what you're looking at. You may have to learn 3, 4, 5 different languages in order to accomplish what you want, right? You'll generally have some kind of data layer where you're interacting with the customer data or whatever data that you are working with, some kind of application logic that's running on the server that's driving your platform. That's where most of your business logic lives, and rules and things like that. And then you'll have some client-side code, which is really driving the experience for your end user. And those are those forms and really the visual part of your application. Next slide, please. So these exact same things, looking at a low-code platform like Mendix, it looks a lot cleaner and it looks a lot easier to work with, right? I'm not learning a lot of different languages here in order to program, and I have the same power at my fingertips as if I did if I was writing every single one of those lines of code. You know, I'm abstracted a little bit away from it, so I have this drag and drop model where I can use these visual elements to draw my page designs and my interactions with my user. I can go through these workflow diagramming scenarios where I'm kind of grabbing actions and decisions and building my business logic there in the workflow. And then you see the data model in the top left, where again, it's more of a creating your entities, which is your tables and your columns and the associations, but it's all very visual. You're not writing SQL queries or anything like that. Next slide, please. So one of the things that's also been asked is, how do we certify? Mendix is definitely one that does have a paid certification path, and it's a pretty robust path. There are many consulting firms out there like Accenture and Deloitte, and even big companies like eXp Realty and New Balance, Continental, who are using Mendix and leveraging it. It's anything from your small citizen developer who's building a tool to help their day out, to the municipality of Dubai. The entire PostNL Netherlands postal system and other major systems are built entirely on Mendix applications. So it's pretty robust in what you can do with it. And with the growing adoption of Mendix with large companies and governments, there's definitely a huge need and a real developer career path that has come about of it. On the entry-level side, you know, Mendix has a variety of courses that take you from anywhere being someone who's never looked at any kind of programming before to someone who's already a professional developer and wants a quick kind of crash course on how the visual modeler works. And then you can kind of progress through the certifications all the way through advanced and expert. All right, so with that, I'm going to jump into a bit of a demo. So I'll share my screen here and we'll look at a little app here. So this is essentially what would be an e-commerce type application. So I've got the anonymous site kind of here. I can land here, kind of something similar that you'd see, banners, my products, different places you can get to on my site, things that I'm advertising, you know, and you can kind of move around. And I'll show you kind of behind the scenes what this looks like, right? I've got a product selection, whatever there is. And then I can also build on top of something like this, a customer portal. And so now my customers can log in to my commerce site and we can look at things like their credits, their bills, manage their subscriptions, things like that. Pretty much anything you could think of, whatever you might want to build, right? If they're managing their devices, if they want to report something lost, they're managing their smart home, they can add IoT devices. All these connectors are pretty much built in to the Mendix platform, and everything is pretty much drag and drop with what you can do. And so let's look a little bit behind the scenes here, and I'll switch over to Mendix Studio Pro. And on Mendix Studio Pro here, you're kind of looking at this layout, and this is my visual integrated development environment, or my IDE. I see in my App Explorer, I've got different modules, and these modules could be modules that I created. They could be modules that I downloaded from the App Store. And every module will have some kind of data model behind it, and I can add different things like building blocks, which are visual building blocks, or different kinds of editors. So if we go and look at my homepage here, this is that homepage we were just looking at, and you can kind of see where the design here. And it's as simple as, if I wanted to update this page, you know, I wouldn't need to put in a request to IT. If it was a very simple update, I wanted to move some things around, I can make some changes here, very visually come over here, grab a new picture and throw it here, and then hit publish, and this would run to the cloud and be available for users to use right away. I could also put some controls in here and, you know, kind of have some checks and balances for quality and things like that. But it's really it's really that simple to come in and build without having to do a lot of coding. We can look at a JavaScript action here where if you wanted to, you can extend this. So we wanted to extend this here, but we can grab a little snippet of JavaScript, drop it in here, and then we can drag this and use it somewhere in a workflow or wherever we want to execute, just feed the right type of input parameter and get what we want. So all these things are available. You can also extend it. It's essentially a Java-based app on the server side, running JavaScript, HTML, CSS on the front end. You can also build React Native mobile apps using this platform without doing a lot of coding and publish them to like the app stores and things like that. So real quick, a couple more things that I want to show or really tour on this is the products that Mendix does provide for managing your application. So I'm working here in the Mendix Cloud, and the Mendix Cloud is essentially the SaaS application provided by Mendix that you can optionally use. If you have a more robust organization, you can host all the apps in your own cloud. You can host them on physical servers sitting in your office. It's whatever you choose to employ. And ultimately here, you have collaboration tools. I can manage stories for those of you who are used to working in a more agile or scrum environment. You can work with sprints and stories, create them here. You'll be able to pull them into the modeler and connect your commits and things like that. And so it's good for tracking, managing your team, feedback and things like that. And so this is kind of the cloud portal that you get to manage your app. You can see I have my app running here in a free cloud environment. And by the way, everything that I've done so far for this demonstration, what I've shown you, everything has been 100% free. It doesn't cost anything to go sign up, grab a free cloud environment, run an app, and take a look at it. In fact, this entire application that I'm running here, I created about 10 minutes before this meeting using a template that was available in the App Store. And all this functionality, all these connectors, I can come in here, they're actually SAP connectors, Salesforce connectors. All these things are kind of built-in modules that I can bring in to extend my application. And that really takes me to the marketplace here. And this is ultimately where all these things are. There's everything from cognitive services, AI, ML, to IoT, to basic things like display formatters or Excel importers and things like that. So there's really a lot of tools that you can use to build applications, and the model is pretty much the same as you can get quick to market on some of these things. And the last thing I'll show before I hand it off is the Mendix Academy. This is where you'd want to come to really get started with all of it. You have everything from classrooms for the certifications to quick webinars on how to do individual things like build a quick chat app or a habit tracker, where they'll walk you through step by step. The classrooms themselves are very intuitive. There are different learning paths, and you have videos and all sorts of content that you can use to follow along and go through. It's 100% free to do all of this. The certifications are a paid certification path if you're an enterprise customer. And if you have a .edu email address, or you're still in school, or you're a teacher, it's very likely you can go through all of this for free if your school is part of the Mendix University program. And that's all I have for today. And with that, I'll hand it over to Shaheen. Thank you.
We've made it, guys, to the Kahoot session. Lots are at stake here. Imran's book on how to build low-code tools will be the prize here. So what I'd love for you to do now is go to kahoot.it, and we are going to be giving these books on how to build low-code tools to the top 5 winners. So if you could go ahead, go to kahoot.it and put in this pin 5099523. It'll be really quick, but we promise really fun. And you can test yourself and see how much you learned today as well. So we have 59 people coming in. Competition is fierce right now. In order to, for those of you who are still joining, please put in your real name if you can, so we know who to give prizes to, because we need to track you down. And if you haven't, don't worry about it. We can communicate by chat if AJ or RD ends up being a winner here. We're at 112. Okay, I'm going to give it one more minute at most. So get in there quick, quick, quick. Kahoot.it, pin code 5099523. Again, these prizes are books on low code, no code. A book written by one of our panelists, Imran, who you just heard from at Mendix. Alrighty. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to get started. Question 1, how much investment capital has gone into low code, no code in the last few years? In the last year, I'm sorry. 1.2 billion, 3.5 billion, 5.7 billion, or 9.4 billion. The purple button on the right is how many seconds we've left to go. 62 of you got that correct. It is 9.4 billion, an incredible amount of investment that has gotten into low code, no code. And we have FaZe at the top here, followed by ZM, neck and neck. Question 2, what was the most interesting low code, no code tool you heard about today? Airtable, ServiceNow, Mendix, or Pizza Hut? So this one had 3 correct answers. So, but it looks like what the most popular tool today was either Mendix or Airtable. Wow, interesting. And Airtable wins at 77. Interesting to know. Let's see how we're doing. FaZe is still in the lead with Akbar and Salman S right behind. Question 3. Which of these are categories of no-code tools? Business intelligence, machine learning AI, workflow automation, or all of the above? All of the above, but most of you got that one. FaZe is still holding on to his lead, but he's so closely followed by Akbar K and Ali Khan M. What percentage of enterprises are planning to build with no-code, low-code tools? 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100%? "91 of you got that it is 75% of enterprises are planning to build with low code, no code tools. So great business job opportunities out there. We have FaZe still holding on to his lead. Can anyone trump him? Ali Khan M is right behind at 5270, and then Noreen took the spot, swooped in there at number 3. What is a citizen developer? Someone who uses programming languages to build software applications, one who uses low-code, no-code tool development to create new software, a programmer with a US passport, or someone who writes requirements for a software application. Yep, it's one who uses no-code, low-code development tools to create new software. Is Faye still in first place? Let's see here. Yes, he is retaining his lead. Ali Khan M is number 2, and Murad has taken the number 3 spot over here. What was ServiceNow's original name? GlideSoft, Snowflake, NailCloud, or Glide Record? Wow, this was a really hard one. It stumped a lot of you. GlideSoft is the correct answer. A lot of you thought it was NailCloud. So let's see how we're doing. FaZe is still in the lead at 62.98. Ali Khan M took the second spot, 61.41, and Murad M is at the third spot over here. When was Mendix founded? 1998, 2008, 2013, or 2018? The answer is 2008. 67 of you got that, but it definitely stumped a few of you. Whoa, this question totally changed the game. Ali Khan M is in first place at 78.33. Kareem Othani is second place, 68.33. And Noah L took the board. And we have some new names on here. I see Raheem and Zara up here too. What are the tools Mendix provides for collaborating on building apps? Mendix Studio and Mendix Studio Pro, Mendix Online and Mendix Desktop, Mendix Express and Mendix Pro, or Mendix Lite and Mendix Studio Pro. Most of you got this one. Sorry, most of you did not get this one. This stumped most of you. Mendix Online and Mendix Desktop is the correct answer, with only 14 of you getting this one. This is a hard one. They all sounded really similar. Let's see how we look. Ali Khan M in the lead, Zara number 2, and Kareem Othani at number 3. And the final question, Mendix allows you to rapidly build robust applications with minimal coding, leverage a marketplace of pre-built modules, quickly turn innovative business ideas into working software products, or all of the above. Yeah, most of you got this right. 102 of you got that it is all of the above. And let's see how we stand. Kareem Othani at number 3. Zara at number 2. 8 out of those questions right. And number 1, Ali Khan M, who got 8 out of 9 questions right, but just at greater speed. And for 4 and 5, we have Noah and Salman. Great job, team. Well done. We will be getting addresses and sending books out so you guys can become low-code, no-code experts. This ends the Kahoot session, but we have Q&A with Zubair next, so I will go ahead and turn it over to him.
Thank you, Shaheen, and thanks for everybody for participating. That was fun. Thanks for participating in that. Several of you have shared questions in the chat and in the Q&A, and we've been attempting to answer those as we go along. But we'll also take a few questions now, and we'll ask our panelists if they can answer for us. Are they here in the spotlight, or if you can? Videos on? Yeah, there we go. Great. And so one of the questions that came up was around certifications. What kind of certifications? How long does it take to get certified? I think, and Marion, correct me if I'm wrong, tools like Airtable and other tools like Bubble don't necessarily have certifications, but as you heard, the enterprise tools do. And so, Amin, would you mind taking just to get a little bit of time to talk about ServiceNow and any other tools you know about and the certification process, what's involved and how long it takes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I'll start with is the free learning, because I think that applies to us all, especially if you've never used ServiceNow before. So ServiceNow does offer a site called Now Learning that has big and there's kind of short and long courses that are web-based, drag and drop training that is available. So that can be done within hours in some cases, days in other cases. They also do offer almost hundreds of certifications that you can get at this point in different areas of the platform because it has expanded so much. And those are typically, a 3-day long course where, from morning to night, you're going to be working in the tool. You have a presenter, and then those are followed by a single exam. At the very kind of pinnacle of it all is something called the Certified Master Architect program, which actually I myself am trying to take at the moment. But that's a 6-month-long program that's filled with panels and live sessions and real life use case solving.
Great, thanks, Amin. And do you, or maybe Imran, if you know of others besides other resources we can do, or maybe we can prepare some links after and share with the group. But Imran, do you want to share? I guess you already spoke a little bit about Mendix. Can you share about any of the other tools and what you are aware of in terms of certification processes?
Yeah, I mean, outside of Mendix, it's more kind of general soft skills like project management, I think, or kind of Scrum or type of agile methodology type stuff that are generally employed, aside from the technical, that I think would be useful to anyone.
Great, thanks, everyone. So yeah, just to recap there, what we'll do is maybe we can prepare some of the links. I think certainly the ones that Amin had in his presentation are great, and any of the other ones. But I think the ones that Marion talked about for Airtable and others are a lot of self-taught ones, and not as many certifications for those type of tools. Other question that came up was where to start. What are some good tools to start learning with? I think clearly you have Airtable, ServiceNow, and Mendix well represented here. Are there, Marion, are there other tools you'd recommend? I think you mentioned a few during your presentation that are useful, but anything else you'd recommend for people who are just looking to get started, want some lightweight ways to start getting familiar with this kind of tooling?
Yeah, there's lots of tools like Airtable where you can sign up for free and just start playing with the tool. And it really, I think somebody asked in the question, like, how can I get started? Well, it really depends on how can you use a low code tool in your current, career, or even for personal usage. Maybe you're involved in a Seva opportunity and you want to, manage a project with it. So you can test out Airtable or test out a tool like that. Canva is another great example. Like I did some graphics work for IPN. I'm not a designer, but I used Canva to be able to, get some quick marketing templates done. So it really can be used for anything. Let's say you want to manage a budget for yourself personally. You can, find a budget template online. So you can start with something small in your personal or career, or you can talk to your team, like what are your current pain points? Because data takes, many different shapes and forms. So really thinking through, well, what can I do for my team that'll help them manage anything really? So whether it's a content calendar, whether maybe it's an intake form. So for example, the marketing team at Airtable is now creating a request form. As our company's scaling, we're just getting too many requests that are over Slack. So we now have an Airtable form that's going to take over and have a basic ticketing system that will send an email as soon as a request comes through to the marketing operations manager. So all various use cases, various different tools. But you can kind of use it for anything. Maybe you're planning an event for yourself and you can, sign up for MailChimp for free and send a basic email out of MailChimp. So it really depends.
Great, thanks, Marion. Yeah, I think as she mentioned, Airtable, ClickUp. I know Nyla's not here, but she's a big advocate for Monday.com. These are really great tools for project management, tracking lists like spreadsheets extraordinaire, Canva and Figma. Someone asked about data visualization. Google Data Studio or Power BI are really great and easy to use. And Glide Apps is a really fun tool. If you could use like Google Spreadsheets, you can make a very simple mobile application. If you wanted to make something to organize a family tree or a reunion or something like that, you could do it very easily with Google Spreadsheets and something like Glide Apps. Okay, great. Question has come up for Amin about, someone wanting to get into working for ServiceNow, gaining more experience. Is a certification good enough to get a job? Number one, what kind of salary for a beginner in that field? Would you mind sharing, Amin, a little bit about the ServiceNow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's kind of, depending on your experience, you can work for ServiceNow if you want to build the low-code tool. And I think I saw another question that was related to that as well. Or you can work to implement ServiceNow at various organizations. If you're someone who has no experience in the field and are looking to break in, I think, there are plenty of times where I've hired personally people that, have some kind of domain knowledge, whether it's in, human resources or IT or some kind of functional knowledge, but no low code, that's fine. We can get people up and running within weeks on the platform. If I were you, what I would recommend doing, take a couple of the free intro courses on Now Learning. That'd be good enough to have you conversational with what the tool can do. And then start applying for jobs. I don't think there's any real, there's really no roadblocks, I guess, for you to get a job in a low code space. We're not seeing that because there's just so much demand, and it's so fast to teach after you've gotten the job. In terms of salary, I think salaries are very competitive right now as well. Again, there's a huge shortage in the market. I'm sure that's the case for all of the low code tools here. So again, salaries are very good, very dependent upon where you live. So if it is a non-remote role, if you're along the coasts, I think there's a lot more, obviously the salaries are a bit higher, and I think for an entry-level person, you could be looking anywhere from 50 to 70,000, just right off if I were to throw a number out there.
Great. Okay, thanks, Amin. And question came up, I'm not from the IT field, how to go about getting into this, how technical do I need to be? Imran, you want to handle that? You want to shed some light?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these tools are aimed more for those business users who aren't as technical, really. And that's kind of where a lot of it comes from, is that, more non-technical people need to be able to solve technical problems without having to wait on those who are really adept at it. And so it's really ideal for tools like this, in this day and age, it's kind of, you have to have some level of technical ability, right? You got to be able to use a computer and do some basic things on it, but you don't necessarily need to be a programmer or some kind of, you don't need to live in your mother's basement and not shower or come out for days and just drink Mountain Dew and, eat Doritos. Like regular business people who wear suits and ties and shower can also program without a big technical background.
Great. Question came up around getting advice and coaching. I know Nyla had offered to make herself available. Amin, Marian, Imran, what's the best ways to get in touch with you in terms of availability? And are you available to give some advice after?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm on LinkedIn, and that's really the only platform you can find me on. And feel free to connect with me, and I'm more than happy to answer questions anytime.
Yeah, same as well. LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I'd highly encourage you also to participate in the IPN Slack group. I think you'll find these and several other folks who can be of help there. Question was asked about, are there any tools for developing a high quality game? I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that question. Amin, do you know, or Imran, any no-code tools that could be useful in that area?
I don't. I know Mendix is not. There are tools like Roblox, I think it came up earlier, that kind of provide their own editors inside of them. But if you're building a new game, you might want to look at something more robust like Unity or some other kind of engine. But they might exist. I just don't know about them.
Yeah, I'd echo the same.
Great. Okay, good. Let's see, the other questions had come up. One question came up, is how do these platforms handle data security and privacy for sensitive information? Marian, you want to share with regards to Airtable?
Yeah, this is definitely a pain point for me as my current role. I basically can't do anything without extremely long, tedious security legal reviews. We have an entire team of engineers, and security specialists that are dedicated to ensuring that anything and everything used at Airtable, including even just a contractor working with me, is not allowed to access any Airtable platform without having an Airtable designated laptop. So it's like a very tedious process to even work with anybody. But we're obviously certified in all of the various major security protocols. Definitely check out airtable.com/security for more information. But there are entire teams dedicated to this because our customer data has to be managed quite securely because we are working with healthcare companies, energy companies, we work with a lot of government agencies. So we have to meet several layers of privacy protocols.
Great, thanks, Mary. I think we have maybe one last question and then we'll have to wrap it up is, considering the breadth and wealth of platforms available, how could I prioritize and choose what to learn and build if the change? You may get at least 3 answers from the panelists, but I think, Amin, do you want to generally answer that question?
Yeah, it's tough. I will say that, I guess for me, it was, I kind of stumbled into ServiceNow, if you will, but again, that may happen to you. What I would recommend is if you currently work in a corporate environment is look to see what's around you first and foremost. You may already have ServiceNow or Airtable or Mendix already operating in your environment, and you may even have active programs for digital transformation, which is looking for opportunities to expand those platforms to make the investment that IT is making worth it for them, right? So I'll use a healthcare system again as an example. The system was bought and paid for by IT. However, we have people approaching us from the business saying, "Hey, I know we have ServiceNow. I have this old legacy application or this perfect paper-based process that I think could be a good fit for ServiceNow." They approach their bosses will approach us, and we'll make it happen and we'll put it on the roadmap. I think this connects to what Zubair said earlier around, IT is completely backlogged at the moment. So if there is any opportunity for a low-code tool and citizen developers to take some of that load off, or to really, speaking from the ServiceNow perspective, to kind of, get as much value from that investment that IT is making as possible, I think people will be all ears for that. So I guess in a nutshell, what I'd suggest, look around you, see what's there already, choose one of those systems. And if you work in a corporate environment, then approach your bosses about automating and replacing applications.
Great, thanks, Amin. I think we'll have to wrap up the Q&A now. I know there are a lot of other questions. We'll attempt to answer some of them in the chat, and we will aim to try to provide some information post the session as well. As mentioned, the panelists are available on LinkedIn. You'll find them also on the IPN Slack group. I want to thank everybody for their active engagement. Thank Amin, Imran, Marine for their expertise, their time and knowledge, Nyla as well, who couldn't be here today. And I learned a lot as well. I look forward to continuing this discussion with each of you in the IPN Slack group. Thank you for allowing me to participate. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Zubair. That brings us to the end of our session today. I would like to thank our amazing moderator and speakers, Zubair, Amin, Marine, and Imran, for an insightful webinar and for their time today. This webinar would not have been possible without them, and I cannot thank them enough. I would also like to thank the IPN Certifications volunteers for their seva and for all of you. Thank you for attending and listening. Please be on the lookout for a follow-up email with the recording link of today's session and the PowerPoint presentation, as well as a one-page resource guide with certification resources, a job referral link, contact information of our moderator and speakers, and a limited time discount code. IPN is here to help you connect with each other and help you in your career, professional development, and entrepreneurial endeavors. Please reach out to IPN with any questions and requests at connect@ipnonline.net. Stay safe and Yali Madad.